I'm very pleased to be able to welcome all of you to Government House this morning for this very short but significant meeting and gathering. We're basically gathered to be able to put into place and to set in motion the wheels for the functioning of the Integrity Commission. The Integrity Commission was established under the Integrity in Public Life Act of 2013, number 18 of 2013. And under the provisions of the Act, there would be an Integrity Commission which would be empowered to deal with all aspects as the Act prescribes in terms of regulating the conduct of public officials and the necessary declarations that have to be made. So I'm pleased this morning to set the ball in motion in the sense of the official commissioning of the Integrity Commission. This commissioning today would be the handover of the instruments of appointment. First to the chairman, Mr. Damien Kelsick, whom I have invited to perform the functions of chairman in my own deliberate judgment as prescribed by the Act. And then Mr. Franklin Maitland, who I've appointed on the recommendation of the Honorable Prime Minister, and Mrs. Carol Boddy, whom I've appointed on the recommendation of the Leader of the Opposition. So you can see that the Act provides for all of these elements to come together in terms of forming the Commission. The Act is a very detailed one, and it prescribes the persons, the public officials, who must make the necessary declarations of interest. And certainly we'll be putting into place all of the mechanisms to facilitate that. I wish to impress upon the members of the Commission that their task is to set the mechanics in motion. It is a principled position. They will all be required to subscribe to oaths before they embark upon their full duties, the oaths of secrecy, because they will be coming into possession of information, the oaths of office, so that it facilitates the functioning of their respective offices. I expect everybody to work together. This is not a political affair, notwithstanding the fact that the Act prescribes nominations by certain office holders, but it is intended to be a national entity and undertaking. I think that our people would have much confidence in terms of saying to the members of the Commission, who are all professionals. Mr. Kelsick, for example, is an attorney at law of some 27 years standing. Mr. Maitland, a certified accountant, and Mrs. Boddy, also a certified public accountant. So that all of these persons bring to these positions significant qualifications, and we repose tremendous confidence in them to be able to discharge their functions. Now, integrity in public life is not new to the Caribbean. There are several other territories where they have sought to put into place some mechanism to govern the functioning and the integrity of public officials. Some of them have had some success, some others have had much failure. And so I think that the country will be relying on you, the members of the Commission, to make it a success in terms of being able to discharge your duties without fear or favor. What do they say? Affection or ill will, just for the completeness of that. And so it is indeed a pleasure for me in the Office of Governor General to be able to distribute this morning to you individually, members of the Commission, your instruments of appointment, which give you the necessary authority and power to be able to function. So I'd first invite Mr. Damien Kelsick. It's a pleasure for me to present the instrument of appointment to you, which appoints you from the 1st of September for a period of 3 years as chairman of the Integrity Commission. With all best wishes to you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm humbled.
You're welcome. Mr. Maitland. It's my pleasure and privilege also to appoint you as a member of the Integrity Commission and to wish you well for the same period, a period of 3 years with effect from the 1st of September. All the best to you.
Thank you, Excellency, and I look forward to serving.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Boddy. It's my pleasure to be able to present the instrument of appointment to you, and I know that you'll be able to discharge your duties and wish you well. Congratulations.
Thank you, Excellency, and I too will try my utmost best to serve this commission and my country to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much. I now invite the Prime Minister to say a few words.
We have come at such a suitable place, the historical grounds of Government House, at this historic building and compound, to, as it were, further witness what we, the inheritance of a past history of government and governance, are doing to consecrate the future. For way back then, these sacred grounds represented control from yonder, part of a colonial past. Today, these grounds are our grounds, and in a manner of speaking, we are showing the world that we are consecrating the future of governance in keeping with our values, our culture, and our expectations as a people. So I feel very special to be part of this. His Excellency was so right in saying that the matter of integrity in public life is not new to the region. And indeed, in some respect, it has not been new in St. Kitts and Nevis. It has been part of the political vocabulary for a very long time. And indeed, in 2013, an attempt was made to have this come into law. The bill was passed, but it lay comatose for a while. I am pleased that my administration has determined to move forward with the integrity in public life. And we have done so appreciating that the bill, lengthy and detailed as it is not a perfect bill. We have done so notwithstanding we have heard from members of the public, including members of the public sector, concerns expressed regarding certain elements of the bill, its efficacy, and the efficiency which it will bring to national life. We hope that at some stage later, we will surely be able to advance it through consultation and bring a reform bill that better reflect public expectations. The matters with which we confront in the dialogue and the conversation regarding this bill are not new. But my government, of course, came to office and two platforms: prosperity for all, improving the quality of life for all of our people, and a good governance agenda. The integrity of public life falls squarely under the good governance agenda. So those two prongs, by and large, are captured, and they are not mutually exclusive. For the quality of life for the mass of the people would only come to an acceptable standard in the context of good governance pervading. So again, for me, it is a very good day for us to enforce our commitment 100% to the good governance agenda. The good governance agenda is a catalyst for empowering our people, and it must bring changes to the institutions and the society at large, and hence it must become a driver for an enhanced quality of life for all of our people. Over the last weekend, I had reason to just scan through the pages with regard to the regional experience with respect to the workings of Integrity in Public Life Commission. Trinidad has had a long experience with it. but they too, they have had overtime to go back to Parliament again and again to attempt to get an act which best reflect expectations, culture of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. In 1987, there was an integrity in public life law. It was repealed. In 2000, they came back again, revisited the drawing board, and brought a piece of legislation, number 83 of 2000. Later that year, in 2000, they went back again, number 88 of 2000, by which they sought to address again the evolving expectations of people regarding the integrity in public life. The interesting one, number 88 of 2000, was about the breadth of coverage. Who should be covered by an integrity in public life bill? I believe the society as a whole would want each and every member of the society to be a member with integrity. And there is no special reason at all why integrity must pervade in the public sector and not in the private sector. You need both if the values are going to be sustained. We have to have the society as a whole hooked onto and wanting and demanding integrity everywhere. It begs the question, where does the demand come from for persons to lose their integrity? Who are the persons who come with offers and inducements? Are they in the public sector or are they coming from the private sector? And unless we are able to contain demand, which is why there is a need for a societal push and acceptance of it, then we will always be challenged. To go back to the Trinidad scenario, the Trinidad people determined through their government that judges ought to be part and ought to be subjected to annual reporting under the Integrity in Public Life Act. That was what 2000 amendment was about, number 88 of 2000, to expand it, to recognize that in the realm of the judiciary, the vulnerabilities that persons who are public officials are exposed to are also available. And we could look as we listen to the news in our churches, as we hear some of the gross inadequacies that prevail in a number of denominations that have now made international news. We look accents and we say that this integrity has to be something to which each of us in our own way determine is an acceptable mode of conduct for all of us. When the matter went to court in Trinidad and Tobago as to whether or not the judges and the magistrates should be subjected to regular reporting, the justices determined that they would want to exempt the judges from that particular requirement. And it is an important judgment which perhaps at some point members would want to look at. There were two broad issues which emanated from the court judgment in relation to that matter. The breadth of entities and officials on the duty to report had been a matter of concern. And in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, there was the judicial interpretation that the bill was so wide that every director of a charitable organization was subjected to it, sporting, professional bodies, religious and cultural groups. In the view of many, the bill had gone too far. In the context of St. Kitts and Nevis, there are some civil servants, assistant secretaries, who are captured by the bill, and they ask, why me? Are we coming too low in the middle management of the sector to identify people and to put them under the requirement of this invasion and what they may consider their privacy? That is a matter which the society must, of course, debate and look at. Those views, when the Honorable Attorney General held the public consultation, with senior officials of the government at Marriott, those views were canvassed. Why us? Trinidad and Tobago faced that too. In a statement to the Parliament by the Attorney General then, Lady Anisette George, she drew attention that they were concerned with regard to those who were members of public sector boards. And the government had found since passing the law a number of persons who were reticent regarding whether they would want to lend their expertise and service to public sector bodies if in the end it meant that they have to lay bare their circumstances to the rest of the world. In that regard, it is critically important that the oath of secrecy be taken very, very seriously. Because if there is no confidence in the Integrity Commission, then its work would not have the value. It will not have legitimacy. And legitimacy comes largely to the public being confident in the quality of the work, the impartiality, the professionalism which members of the Integrity Commission can bring. And it becomes very challenging in a small society where people know who your friends are, who your neighbors are, who your families are, and perhaps what your party affiliation is, for us really to be able to deal with that expectation. But elsewhere, persons have found ways to deal with that. I draw a second attention to a concern which the Honorable Attorney General, Ms. Anisette George, brought to the public domain in 2008 as the government then contemplated a further reform to the integrity in public life. And it tells me then that this is an evolutionary program and that you are going to have amending legislation from time to time, as we have done in other issues related to land law, related to the public service. So it is a work in progress. And the question then, and it is one also that we in St. Kitts and Nevis, as we learn from their experience, have to deal with. The question then was, how do we strike a balance between what the Attorney General then perceived as the unnecessary and untenable encroachment on the lives and the privacy of our citizens and the commitment of the government to good governance, including accepting its international obligations on the several international treaties to which Trinidad and Tobago, like St. Kitts and Nevis, is a signatory. And then she raised an important concern. How do we factor in practical way the right to make a complaint, but at the same time ensure that the complaints are not frivolous or malicious, and balance that according to the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago then, with the fundamental principle of natural justice that he who alleges must prove. In other words, would it be right that somebody tonight get on radio and makes an allegation about some public official, the Director of Public Works, for example, who is captured in the bill, the Financial Secretary, and that become cause accompli without facts, without sufficiency of evidence for that person's reputation to go through the mud. These are, of course, matters that we will have to contend with as a society, and most importantly, the commissioners would have to deal with and seek support of the law where necessary, so that we could have the best mix of legislation that really can reflect the lived reality of our people. In closing, again I refer to the Senator Anisette George's contribution or statement to the Parliament and the integrity in public life. I found it interesting that in her presentation, she was quoting Stevenson King. I haven't heard much about the functioning of the integrity of public life in St. Lucia, but I promised to make some calls. And I quote her, "It is here, Mr. Speaker, that I wish to quote Mr. Stevenson King of the United Workers' Party in St. Lucia, who presented a paper entitled Pursuing Integrity in Public Life on the 30th of May 2005. He noted, and I quote, this is the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, "Public scrutiny is a continuous thing, but we must all understand that our role as members of the Integrity Commission is not to embarrass public officials, but to monitor their behavior, to ensure that it is consistent with the principles of integrity." Mrs. Anisette George went on to say, "In the government's view, this is a statement that any integrity commission should wish to use as its beacon." I repeat the quotation, "Public scrutiny is a continuous thing, but we must all understand our role is not to embarrass public officials, but to monitor their behavior to ensure that it's consistent with the principles of integrity." In other words, you want to bring about healthy behavior. You want to create a salubrious environment, an environment that is conducive to honesty and probity in the context of life of public officials. And you want to find the best way of doing that without creating rancor and without perhaps doing undue damage. The Attorney General said that that was the view of the government, and she commended that view to the Commission. I hesitate for making any commendation of that view or any other view to the Commission, but to say to the Commission that we expect them to work diligently, properly, and professionally to assist the country with its good governance agenda. My attention this morning, coming out of Trinidad again, because it had good examples of Commission at work, fractious at times as they have been. And it was from the Prime Minister Rowley in 2017, in which he was having, how do I describe it? A conversation, antagonistic, and at times Rowley is in that way with institution. And he was condemning the Integrity Commission. And he said to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, "I take a strong view against the Integrity Commission." That's Rowley, not me. He said, "Because I've found that this is an Integrity Commission without integrity." It must never be said of our Integrity Commission here that it is an Integrity Commission without integrity. Let us all do our very best with this sacred duty that has been bestowed upon us as part of the country's view to provide an enlightened pathway for public officials to engage and to lead the region and the good governance agenda. What I offer to the commissioners are my own personal congratulations. I think each of you is a fit and proper person to discharge the responsibilities imposed upon you. And I can give each of you the assurance that the government will work with you to ensure that we can give you as much support, morally and otherwise, to ensure that you can do the best job. So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kelsick, I wish you well. To Franklin Maitland, I wish you well. And to the lone female, Mrs. Body, I wish her also all the very best, and the country has high hopes that you will do an incredible job. May God bless you all, and may God bless our country. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
I want to thank the members of the Commission for agreeing to serve, and again, to wish them well, to congratulate them all, and to wish them well. That brings to an end the formal ceremony.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.